It was about inviting people that have a strong interest in changing what's going on in our world. There's people here with strong backgrounds in different arenas, and we need to find a way in the near future of working together to bring change. Obviously the two-party system is heading in a certain direction. We can't stop that. As much as we'll scream and yell, we hold rallies, we do everything, and we go on radio and we yell and scream about what's wrong, and we don't seem to see change. So what tonight's about is listening to a few people and what's going on in their particular arenas, uniting us all, hopefully, as many as we can, and growing that in the near future. And the Australian Alliance, if you're wondering what it's about us here today. It's not about me, it's not about anyone in particular, it's about working together, finding a common goal, and not expecting you or telling you what to do, but more so embracing what it is you are compassionate about and finding a way of working together. And if we can do that, and we can do that here in other states and build upon it, I think we can make some decent change. And if nothing else, we can educate our supposed representatives as to what we do want to achieve. So there'll be a few people speak for a few moments on topics of great importance to them, and each of those topics will be important to all of us. So in a moment we'll start speaking, but just a quick hello, and we'll just drag the rest of the people in. A few people are running a bit late, especially the farmers. Not all of them. One lot were the first here and the others are coming late.
You were second.
Huh? I did come close. I do live in farming territory. I do get up at 5 in the morning to do farm direct markets every now and then, which was an idea. Just so you all know, this is, one thing I don't want this to become is a sooking group, a whole lot of people that get together and sook about what's wrong with the world. There's plenty of, everyone does that now, but what it is to gain those people that are pretty well awakened and see what we can do to change the world, all right? And that starts here in South Australia, but it rubs off. In Queensland, there's a particularly large group interested in what we're doing here, and in Queensland, New South Wales, we have a group as well. These are all people for the last 10, 14 years that have tried to unite people, and we just haven't managed to make it work. So let's hope that the platform tonight will do that. And this is not concrete, so if you've got ideas afterwards or in the break, come up and let us know. If you've looked through, there's a stapled piece of paper stapled together, which is very, very rough, on the core directives that we hope to embrace. See, the idea here is to have some basic core directives that everybody agrees to, then from there build upon that. And if your special interest was law, for instance, only, then there'll be a law and order section. If your special interest is farms, there'll be a section for farmers. If it's veteran affairs, we'll have a veteran affairs section. If it's medical or healthcare, then there'll be a healthcare section. And so you don't have to give up what is important to you and become just a member of a party. We want you to become the voice of those sections and then become a united voice for the Alliance. And the Alliance really is, it's not going to be registered, got no interest. It's not going to become a political party, got no interest in that either. It doesn't really need to have a leader of any form. I'm happy to speak on its behalf temporarily until we can find out what we do need. My background is 14 years in the political arena. In that time, I've represented political parties, I've written policy, I've been an independent candidate, or as the advertisers like to call me, serial candidate, which means I go after cereal or cornflakes or something, I'm not really sure. And I have no intention of giving up. I have no intention of living in this country and watching it turn to rubbish without standing up and fighting for it. And the people here, mostly that I know here, feel exactly the same way. There's people here that are, as I said, when we've tried to unite people before, there's been people that care about one topic, and that's fine. If your topic is Aboriginal rights, for instance, sake, join. Let's have a big rights-based system and then split up. When we say we want to fight for rights and liberties, there are lots of issues when it comes to rights and liberties. There's the rights and liberties of children, there's the rights and liberties of minority groups. We need to split that up and people can join in. If someone's only interest is attacking bad law, like Serious Organised Crime Control Act or another rubbish like that, then that's what they can specialise in. They don't have to do anything else. But by coming to these meetings, they'll listen to other people in the group and will become educated. If somebody wants to be a candidate and stand up as a representative, we will support them if they adhere to our core directives. So They don't have to be. You're not going to have to join the alliance, all right? You don't have to do what we tell you. If you're an independent and you agree with the basic core directives we come up with, and you are particularly interested in 2 or 3 topics, and then you're asked about something else, you'll have someone here to give a call and find out about that. And you'll come along to meetings and you'll hear people speak about different topics, so you'll become educated. And education is not just about telling people what you believe, okay? If someone doesn't understand what you're telling them on a social network, you do not call them a sheep, okay? That doesn't work. You don't go to a primary school to try and educate children on physics, all right? We have to start, all of us here have specialty topics, and we have learnt over maybe 6 or 10 years or maybe longer. And if we're going to start educating the public what's wrong, we have to step back to the grassroots core problem, okay? We can't go out and try and tell people what they should and shouldn't think. So we have to educate, and that's what I think the Alliance can be about, because I have a very strong interest in civil rights and liberties, and I have a very, very strong interest in animal welfare. Now, if someone else in the group doesn't know a lot about animal welfare, well, by attending these meetings over the coming months and years, depending on what happens, then you will start to learn a bit about that, because you'll hear me speak on it, you'll hear Emma speak on it, and other people that have interest. If you don't know much about any particular topic, well, this is a process for you to learn. And when we have a website that explains all these things, then not only can our representatives go and look at it and maybe pick up a few pointers, because they bloody need it, but we can learn and we can educate the public as well, and that's what it's about. So, really, it's only a small group today, and there's no use inviting hundreds of people and have them come along expecting some group that's concrete and in what it's trying to achieve. It's about us working together today. How can the Alliance do it? We think we have the platform basically done, and if we work together today, we can see if we can concrete that, and then that'll be what we take to the public when we have public meetings, and that's what we'll take to the media when we have media meetings. So there you go, that was an attempt at writing a speech. I've not even looked at it yet. So what we'll do is we'll hear from a few people today that have special interests, and hear about some of the problems that are in the world, and there are lots of them. I think first we'll start with Sharon, just to... do you want me to kick you off, Sharon, or do you want me to put someone ahead of you? Sharon Hollenby, I've known for many, many years, has a very strong interest in gambling reform, and I think that's an important topic that we must cover. The right to gamble, but rights-wise, we've got a right to gamble, but we also need some protection for those that have illness, and we don't have that. And Sharon's been on the forefront of fighting for that, and that's why I wanted to come along today to let you know some of the issues.
Hey everyone, my name's Sharon. I'm used to having a podium, so I'll be standing. I go by my speech. Okay. I'm actually here as a representative of Communities Against Pokies. I just want to say, every dollar that goes into a pokie machine is money that is not going into the right pockets. We're not that ugly, am I? Okay, any government revenue that is raised through pokie machines is far outweighed by the harm that these machines cause, not only to the immediate families and friends of the problem gambler, but to everyone in the community. Even so-called responsible gambling has a huge impact on the community. For instance, before pokies came to South Australia, a young fella's dream was to buy a new car. And they would work and they'd save for it. But now, instead of putting aside that 50 or more for each week towards that new car, they're going to the pokies, the money's going straight into the machines and straight out of our communities. Holden's will close. With all the young people that are gambling now, Holden's will close. And that worries me, because thousands more will be out of work. By the way, very few people do gamble responsibly on the pokies. These machines are designed to addict, and that is exactly what they do. It's also been proven that the closer you live to a venue, the more chance you have of developing an addiction. We have venues on almost every street corner. Now, brothels are not allowed to operate within a certain distance of a school. And if you're caught dealing drugs near a school, then your penalties are a lot harsher. But pokie machines can be right next to schools. It's crazy. My grandson's football club, they even have pokies. And the venues now call it gaming to make it more attractive to our younger people. And younger people are committing suicide. We're losing our young kids. New Zealand, they've led the way by having pokies removed from a town in Victory because it was near a childcare centre. Russia has delegated a specific area of the city for gambling. Singapore have licences to gamble. There are solutions. And our very own Western Australia has refused to have pokies at all. Now, I did a trip over to the West a couple of years ago, checking out country towns along the way because I wanted to see whether the help for problem gamblers has improved at all. It hasn't. South Australian country towns are closing down. Businesses are boarded up, corrugated iron over the windows. It's shocking. Woolworths supermarkets and businesses are still trading. Woolworths supermarkets and surveys are everywhere, but very few businesses are still trading. The people are miserable and the towns lack facilities. In Western Australia, country towns are flourishing and community spirit is alive and well. There are new jetties, there are free barbecues, free hot showers, and Woolworths has to compete with the many other small businesses in the community. The main purpose of my trip was to see about the gambling help facilities. But like I said, they have not improved at all. I got such a runaround from the services in the country areas that if I had been in crisis, I would have gone home and committed suicide. It's a far cry from the well-catered gambling forums where nothing is ever resolved, or the OPG's lobster and champagne Christmas dinners. Gamblers' rehabilitation money is not reaching the people that it's supposed to help. And as people become more desperate, the crime rate rises. I think in America, if you live in an area near a casino, your insurance rate is higher. I don't know about in Australia. I haven't checked on that one. But people who have never been in trouble in their life before find themselves in jail. But it's not just the high-profile cases we have to worry about. It's the petty crime. A mate stealing 10, 20 bucks out of your wallet while you're in the John. Or someone siphoning petrol from your car. Problem gambling affects us all. I do agree that gambling creates employment, but only for doctors, mental health care workers, psychologists, lawyers, pawnbrokers and moneylenders. Problem gambling is creating a community of sick, depressed, suicidal, non-productive people, and that is not the sort of community that I want to live in. The casino are putting in 1,500 more pokie machines. Now, the public got told 500, but in fact it's 1,500. With the government's blessing. Where are you now, Mr. Xenophon? Yes. And the government are building the footbridge to herd these people straight to them. Communities Against Pokies are planning a silent vigil for when that footbridge opens. Communities Against Pokies would like to see the pokies out of the pubs and clubs. If we're going to have a casino, yes, let's have a casino with as many pokies as you want in there, but just have them in that one place. The research has been done, and the outcome is the same from all over the world. We don't need more research. We currently have an ex-radio personality on the Independent Gambling Authority's board. And although we've asked on a number of occasions what qualifies her to be on the board, we have only received abusive responses, and that's from the Independent Gambling Authority. We believe that a reformed gambler should be involved in any decision-making process involving gambling reforms. It just makes sense. But the Independent Gambling Authority think that that would be an unwise decision. We realise that no one wants to live in a nanny state. We do. But a government has the duty to act in the best interests of all of its citizens, not just the corporations and pokey barons. And that's me. That's in a nutshell. And here's Mark.
Well done. There's so many problems in there. I hope when you go home tonight, after you've listened to everyone speak about the topics they are, that you consider these things and consider how really important it is what we're trying to achieve here, because it's not been done. It's never worked before, because if it doesn't work, though, we really aren't going to go anywhere. We're going to keep going in the direction we are, so it's very important. Another victim, and I'm going to victimise Scony to get him up early. The reason I wanted Scony to come along, and I'll let him talk about it, is this man stood up for many, many years and was instrumental, believe it or not, in bringing a lot of reforms to do with abuse of our children. It's a very touchy topic, and Scony does it well, and I wanted him to come along. I've dragged him out of hibernation. He's sort of stepped back for a while, and you would too if you've been through what he has, but I'd like him to have a chat to you, so thanks heaps, Scony.
Well, I did write a speech tonight, but I don't really think I could read it out. But basically what I want to do with the Alliance is I worked in every form of the child protection industry. I was actually the person that the government handed their clients to, that the government or the church couldn't handle. That basically just taught me for about 7 years working for them, so I'm pretty well recovering from that. But basically over my years of working throughout Australia through child abuse, I know that there is plenty of forms of advocacy groups out there. I call them common purpose groups. Our laws will never change in Australia, because what happens is every story, every saga, you get all these little different common purpose groups, I call them, and they've all got their ideas. They will argue, they will never join together. Now, if our country wants to stop abuse in institutions, abuse in our communities, well, it's about time that we've got an organisation together that will try to get all those advocates together, because it's never going to happen. Everyone argues. I've been through the mill, I've been through the Canberra, I've been to everywhere where they said I couldn't get, and I'm what they call a survivor of institutional care. I can admit, since I started my work, I've actually changed the system. Laws have changed. Now when a kid runs away, the department looks for him. Any faggot, or excuse me, pedophile I should call it, that picks up a kid off the street and harvests him and takes care of him, they get locked up now. They don't get any say in it. They get locked up. Now, that's just a few of the laws that we've worked on over the years. Statute of limitations has been moved in this state.
That was
You and lots of others, mate. Now, our state, we're the leaders in this country. We actually set an example for all the other states in the Forgotten Australian saga to follow our lead. Other states in our country, they don't have the statute of limitations removed. That stops prehistoric cases from being heard, like the 100 deaths of state wards, deaths of children that our state was supposed to be taking care of. We've taken it all the way to Parliament through lots of election issues and stuff. It's one of those things that we hear it, but it's under the mat. They're dead now. Where this still happens today in our age. We've got mentally disabled people that have been left in the system with kids because they're disabled. They grow their whole life in the system, so can't take care of themselves once they get to 18. They're dumped on the streets. They're our society that we walk past in Holly Street. You know, sitting there on the street, the people that we have all neglected. You know, those days have got to stop, you know, people. You know, we're all happy to support the illegal immigrants coming in on their boats. Well, what about our own people? It's about time that, you know, we started taking care of our own. And I mean, the people that I've helped, the people that have died, you know, it's you wouldn't believe the cases that I got heard, the corruption of this state, the way that when I found out the corruption, what they did, when I took it to them and I exposed it to them, the way that they treated me and the way that they knocked me down and destroyed my whole life, I'm not going to forgive them. I'm one of those people that, like Mark knows, when I get onto something, I chew on it and I chew on it, I chew on it, and when you don't hear from me, that's when you've got to be really worried, because that's what I'm doing my work behind. And I mean, I've marched Parliament House, I've done lots of work, but if all these people, you really want to do something for child protection and abuse and neglect, and it happens in lots of different forms. If you want to do something about it, you're all going to have to join together. You're going to have to tell these other groups and that the alliance is happening for stop child abuse in all of its forms. And that's the best we can do, because if you don't, all these groups, all these organisations, all these common purposes, places, they're all going to come, they're all going to go, they're all going to follow, they're all going to argue with each other, but it's going to happen, until people start realising that neglect, when a kid goes into an institution, it's like going out of a fry pan into the fire. In a lot of the old days it was a pretty serious place. Lots of abuse happened. Well, these days I'm proud to say that through our work we've changed it. But I tell you what, it's got a long way to go, because a hell of a long way to go. No government's perfect when it comes to child protection issues. They're very far from it. Like Jennifer Rankins, I hated the lady for years. I must say, I hated her because I had to fight against her. But now that I sit back and I look at the lady, she's one of those ladies that's got the worst job in the world, because you're damned if you do something right, you're damned if you do something wrong. And she's not perfect, but she can't change nothing until she gets the right advocates in there kicking her butt to change it. Now that's what I'm hoping the Alliance job will be for. Thanks a lot.
I think I met Sconey and Kai and a few guys, 10 years ago, Scone? We parked outside of Parliament, we did everything. The Mulligan report was limited in its scope, and even though it was limited, Ted Mulligan came forward and said there were 100 deaths of young children, right, of a suspicious nature, and nothing was done. Nothing was done. And if you've got a report like that, something should be done.
Am I allowed to ask just a question on this subject?
Yes.
As everyone will know, the Beaumont children case has suddenly surfaced again in the media. Now, I'm very concerned about the lack of police. The police seem to be very reluctant to go in there and excavate that site. And I'm just wondering why, and I have this awful feeling that there's going to be nothing done because they're covering up for somebody.
Look, I won't talk about some of the things I've been privy over the years, because really there's not much. You know the old saying, someone comes to you and tells you about something or shows you a video, and it's hard to go public unless you really have absolute proof, and I'm sort of really into the truth. But I've seen some stuff in the state, and I've heard and I've seen in Parliament, and I've seen the responses to stuff that Sconey's put up, and I've seen the Mulligan report and read the full report, and there is so much wrong in this state. There's so much wrong in the world. If we can't start to stop that, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And the fact is, when a major commission comes back, there was what commission? That was the Mulligan, that was a Royal Commission, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mulligan Royal Commission.
Well, if a Royal Commission comes back, the children are being murdered, our children murdered, in state care, of a suspicious nature, you would expect the police to do something about that. You would expect that. And when that doesn't happen, you can start to cast your mind in a lot of places, but it's not. None of it's good. None of it's good.
People that people have been voting for.
You're right, mate. But what we've got to be concerned about here is that we can cast aspersion on the politicians, but politicians can't do much. If you join the Labor Party, your job is to do as the Labor Party asks. If you step up and step against what they say, then you're out. Right, that's why I'm reluctant for the Alliance to become a party. It's all good to become a party, but we're standing here as a grassroots organisation, and in 5 years, 10 years' time, we're some bloody political party where some hierarchy's going, well, we need money, someone's giving us money, we better back them and we better do something, and then we become one of them. And that's what I don't want to ever become. And I never will, as you all know. Now, the next speaker's not here yet. Farmer. Bloody farmers. Greg, so you're victim number 3 because you're on the list. Greg's going to talk about law and order. This man has got a great legal mind. I used to think I was quite smart, and the bastard makes me look like an amateur, which really pisses me off. But I'm learning from him, and one day I aspire to be as smart as him and as good looking.
Thank you very much. I think Mark overstates it a bit. I'm not really that intelligent, but he does, standing next to me does make me look intelligent, so thank Mark for that. Now, I did have a speech prepared. I'm just sitting here debating if I'll go with the speech I prepared or just talk a little bit about law and order and my thoughts on it and the changes which do need to occur here. My last speaker, I actually liked the last speech a lot, dealt a lot with about corruption and cover-ups. One of my main themes that I want to be dealing with is police corruption and the continual age-old topic of that police complaints are dealt with by the Police Complaints Authority. Was I coming out too loud with the mic?
No, you can go a bit louder, actually. A bit closer.
Louder or softer? So I'm not used to a microphone either, I'm used to the pedestal as well. So basically, at the moment we're dealing with a system that deals with police complaints through the Police Complaints Authority. Does anyone here see a problem with this? It is.
Does anybody not see a problem?
Yes, because get out. Whoever said that they didn't. Now, delving into this a little bit further, we seem to find that the head of the police complaints, if anyone isn't aware of this, is a member of the board of the RSPCA. Is this news to people?
Yeah.
Guess who else is on the board? Come on, take us.
Police Commissioner.
The Police Commissioner. Now, Mark and myself have had quite a few dealings with the RSPCA lately and even lodged a couple of police complaints just for the laugh of it. The head of the Police Complaints Authority gets back to us, which we think is absolutely amazing. A head getting back to the little old us, being Sarah Bolt on the RSPCA board with the Police Commissioner for a complaint against the police. Do I hear it's a time for change? Now, we as Australians have a right to live in a society where our freedom and rights are protected. Our rights and freedoms are protected from external threats by our armed forces, whereas internally by our legal system. Our forefathers fought and gave their lives so that we may live in a free and just country, thus forging our Anzac legend. Something as Australians that we are proud of and constantly reminded of. Our country has shed blood and tears to uphold our freedom and the freedom of others. But we as a nation quickly exchange our freedom for the perceived protection from the media's latest boogeymen. The greatest threat to our freedoms today don't come from bikies, they don't come from terrorists, they come from our own fucking government. Legislation is being passed that both overtly and discreetly erodes away at our civil liberties, aka our freedoms. The cornerstones of our legal system, the principles of justice, equality, due process and a presumption of innocence. Most believe that these ideologies are still in place today. They're not. We currently have laws which reverse the onus of proof so that the prosecution need not prove that a man is guilty, rather the man must prove he is innocent. We have laws that create a presumption against bail. We have laws that issue punishment before a matter is even brought to the court, and which, if found innocent, a penalty has already been paid for which there is no recourse. We have laws that allow the admission of hearsay evidence on affidavit and even take away judicial discretion so that judges and magistrates don't even get a choice of making up their mind on an application. There are even laws that allow decisions to be made against men, with neither the men or their legal representatives being present in court. The ACC regularly summons people to coercive hearings. The summons are not allowed to tell anyone where they are going, and once present, they have to answer all the questions which the examiner puts towards them. And then they are forbidden to even talk about these proceedings with anyone else after the proceedings. These are not the laws of a free country. These are the laws of tyranny and oppression. I say it's another time for change.
Time for change.
I mean, how can we say that all men are equal under the law, when for many the choice of a plea of innocence or guilt is dictated on a cost-benefit analysis? Very few people will fight a fine, even when innocent, because the legal costs far exceed the cost of the fine. When costs are awarded against the prosecution in the magistrates' court, they're very rarely even near what one has spent to defend their matter. Despite this small token gesture of costs being awarded to alleviate some of the financial burden, ignoring any other burdens that it may impose upon the poor wrongly accused, the government has made numerous attempts to abolish these costs in the Magistrates' Court. If one is unfortunate enough to be charged for a more serious offence, which is to be heard in the District or Supreme Court, costs are not even awarded once being found innocent of the offence. So for the most expensive defences, an innocent man would receive none of their costs back. This also has the additional effect of making it more likely for the police to charge a person with a higher offence so that the DPP will handle the matter, as opposed to a police prosecutor, and that costs will not be made available to the accused. Our current government feels that legal aid is sufficient to enable those who cannot afford a defence to be represented. I'm glad I have some agreements with that out there. Legal aid is only made available to those on the lowest socioeconomic status, e.g. those who are receiving a government benefit as their sole income.
And only if they
And you also have to expose your defence to legal aid before they'll even fund a trial, because we can trust them. Oh mate, as a practitioner, you don't understand the dramas I go through trying to get any sort of funding from legal aid. It's ridiculous. And even then, we only get paid $500 for a plea, and that's regardless of how many appearances we've done or how many negotiations have taken place.
Does that matter who you are?
Do you mean as a solicitor or a non-solicitor?
Does that change for different lawyers?
No. It does change depending on where it is in the court system, though. Like if it's in the district court, you get about $900. Furthermore, if someone owns assets, a charge is taken over their assets, whereby once sold or the accused is deceased, the Commission will recoup their legal costs, even if the accused was found innocent of the offence, through the selling of the assets.
Win. Win-win.
Yeah, it's great. And this leads to people who are employed, despite being on a low income, they'll still have to pay for their own defence, which, let's face it, who the fuck can afford lawyers?
Don't want it.
We're worth the money. I mean, we need a system of justice, in particular regarding our criminal law system, that is affordable and equitable. One where the level and quality of your defence is not dependent upon the depths of your pockets. A system where the frivolous prosecutions of the police cannot be conducted against an innocent defendant. Through the imposition of cost orders across all jurisdictions. The idea of a government-funded criminal law jurisdiction where the costs of one's defence and prosecution are borne by the government, with costs only conferred upon defendants retrospectively if they possibly elect to defend a case which is going to lose, in which case they should have to pay for it. So there are no frivolous defences, the same way there are no frivolous prosecutions. The overall theme of what is required and needed to improve our legal system from beginning to end is transparency and accountability. And such a theme should extend throughout all facets of law and law enforcement. Year after year we witness corruption by those entrusted with upholding the law. Yet this seems forgotten as we give the police more and more powers which ultimately affect our freedoms and civil liberties. The police claim they need more power. We need to provide the police with as much power as they reasonably need and the resources that they need to fight crime. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that.
Fight crime.
Well, with great power comes great responsibility, and they need to be made accountable for their actions. And through an independent committee, not their own fucking brethren. And a principle of our judicial system is that there need not be actual bias, only an apprehension of such bias. I see no reason why that shouldn't apply to the police. Thank you.
There you go. That's a bit of in-depth for someone that does it every day. Okay, that's what we need in the Alliance. We need people that actually understand, can put to words and look at coming up with ideas that we can change it. The fact is, if I'll just touch on something. A friend rang me the other day, I'm not going to mention names, well known as in the political arena as a right winger, you know, a minor player. We won't go into who he is. He got accused of something he didn't do to shut him up over an expose on the education system. $37,000. They dropped the charges before they went to court, before it went to trial, because there were no charges in the first place. The accusation was horrendous. $37,000, if he doesn't shut his mouth and he ever steps up again, they'll recharge him with the same thing. He is now being charged with something abhorrent, even though he never did it, and that can be used against him. So this is the sort of stuff that shouldn't go on, and that 37 grand should go back in his pocket for a frivolous thing in the first place. But of course, Greg knows more than I do about these things. Now we're going to get up Peter from F.L.A.G, Australia, because they've expanded, haven't you, Peter? Across the country.
I don't know if I'm going to get up, Mark, because you've rubbished us since we got here. We were first here.
Yeah, I rubbished one particular farmer that was late. I didn't rubbish all the farmers. I'm not even going to say who that is now. I'm going to get beaten on the way home.
I'll be waiting for you in the car park.
Yeah, I've heard about you guys. Walk quietly and carry a big stick. Here you go, Peter.
Thanks very much, Mark. You're doing a great job, Mark, with those farm direct markets and also what you've got organised here tonight, and I'd like to welcome all of you. Sharon, you mentioned something in your speech, suicide. We've got 4 farmers a day committing suicide Australia-wide. Also, Scona, you mentioned something about sense. Well, I'll tell you now, mate, common sense went out years ago. We haven't got it. It needs to come back. And Greg, equal rights for everybody, mate. Everybody. Doesn't matter who you are. And the higher you go in society, the worse it gets. Mark mentioned F.L.A.G Australia. Just to give you a little bit of background, in 2010, I went to a natural resource management meeting at Victor Harbour. It was November, and there was about 200 people there. And 7 of these NRM officers sitting out the front. And I listened to their jargon for about an hour, and I thought, gee, we're in trouble. And I said to them, there was silence for a while, and I just asked them a question: who owns the water that comes out of the sky? No answer. I asked them again. No answer. I said, this is the 3rd time, I'm not going anywhere. Have the decency to tell the people here tonight. This little guy stood up and said, the Crown. I said, well, if you think you own the water, we own our infrastructure. We've built our dams, our bores, and we will charge you for the storage of that water. Getting back to the law, Greg, this smart Alex stood up and looked at me and said, there's a court system, mate. Well, I tell you what, he stirred up the biggest hornet's nest he'd ever seen. Because I went away that night and I thought, what in the hell are we going to do? We're in trouble. And I just want you to get this in your head. NRM, Natural Resource Management. Do you know what that actually means? That means they control everything we do. The rain, the wind, the sun, the air we breathe. And I can tell you right now, it's serious, because we are living and breathing it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day on our farms. The Natural Resource Management Act of 2004, and I'll just give you a couple of sections there. Section 69, seize our financial documents. Why does an environmental bureaucracy need our financial documents? Section 127.6a, $35,000 fine for non-complying. So they come in, we want your financial documents, Peter. No, sorry, can't have them. No, if you don't give them to us, that's non-complying, $35,000 fine. That this Labor government wanted to make for an individual $700,000. If you're a family company, this is fair income, 127.6a, $70,000 fine if you're a family company. Most farms are a family business. This government wanted to make it 2.2 million. Now, you might say, why? And do you feel sorry for us farmers? You will pay a natural resource management levy. Have a look at your rates. Right? So, the reason they wanted to change it was 35,000 non-compliant for an individual wouldn't sell your house. 700,000 would. Farms, 70,000 wouldn't sell your farm, 2.2 million would. But we lobbied and lobbied and lobbied, and we stopped that. So it's still 35,000 for an individual and 70,000 for a family company. Also, they wanted the NRM to come onto our properties without a warrant. We stopped that. They also wanted to take away our right to remain silent. So in other words, you couldn't engage a lawyer. We stopped that. I'll just give you some examples what's happened to certain farmers. One particular guy I've known for a long, long time, he was clearing a bit of silt out of his creek to help environmental flow. And he got fined $35,000. Now, he didn't pay that, and the deal was, well, if he didn't pay that, he had to plant 6,500 square metres at his expense of native vegetation and prickly acacia. Now, you might not know what prickly acacia is, but we call it a kerosene bush. It's highly inflammable. Now, I've got a letter here, and it states, by planting this prickly acacia, it will stop kangaroo intrusion on the riverbanks. Now, this is an environmental mob. They don't even want the kangaroo to have a drink. I've got the letter here. Exactly right. You know, food producers have got to put up with fire, flood, mice plagues, locust plagues, and we can handle all that. But when we get a natural resource management board that want us to fence off our creeks, fence off our dams at our expense, and I've asked them why. Because of pristine water. We don't want animal faeces going into the waterways. People need to realise that microorganisms feed off animal faeces. It's part of the ecology. But the reason they want us to fence off our creeks and fence off our dams, because then we meter our dams and everything's on a trough system. So I go out in the paddocks and here's all the kangaroos having a drink, kookaburras and all the rest of it. No problems at all. I'd rather them come to my dam and drink freely from the dam. But I can't afford, and once they tax us for this water, which believe me they will, and with the Liberal and Labor government, don't worry, we just won't be able to afford it. Victoria last year imported more food than it exported. There shouldn't be any state in Australia that could say that. We are 5 years off of being net food importers in this country. We're already net food importers on fruit and veg and seafood. So where does that put us? Can you imagine, once we become net food importers, and whoever we're getting our food from cuts the supply? Don't worry about border security. If we can't feed ourselves, that puts us in a very vulnerable and dangerous situation. I've been fighting this now for 3.5 years, and believe me, some of the properties that I go on, and I'll give you one example where the Department of Water, I had this lady, 72, ring me up and said they're estimating the water in her dam, and she said it's ridiculous. So I went there, had a look at the dam. They said it was about a 10.19 meg. We actually got a water surveyor in, which cost thousands of dollars to accurately measure. They were 1 million gallons out. How would you like it if you got your bank statement and you noticed you're a few $1,000s short, you went into the bank manager and said, hey, listen, mate, I'm a few $1,000s short here, and he said to you, don't worry about it, we're only guessing. They're guessing with our livelihoods. So if we don't stop this environmental movement that might sound all rosy, you know, it's an environmental movement, it's got to be good. Believe me, this is not. This is a dictatorship. They're using the environment as their biggest tool to control us. They've tried every little trick in the book, and people that don't understand about the environment, this is the way they're doing it. This is the way they're controlling us.
An excuse.
It certainly is an excuse. And just in finishing, look, I've got a lot here, but I won't go into it. But did you realise that they're letting water out of Mount Bold reservoirs, out the reservoir? The reason they're doing that is for so-called environmental flow. People that don't know in the summertime, they'll turn around and say Mount Bold's only 50% capacity. We should be capturing more water. Tony Abbott wants to make the northern food bowl of Asia and wants more dams. What I want to say to Tony Abbott is, Tony, what about us? We need more dams. We're already producing food, and if Mark's going to keep these markets going, he needs us. So, thanks very much for the time, Mark. Thanks.
I hope you're getting an overview already of some of the problems, and they're diverse. And that's what the Alliance I want to be about. I want to be diverse. We've got law and order. We've heard about farmers. We've heard about gambling. We've heard about our children, the rights of our children, and those sorts of problems. And they're all very sad. Any one of them should be enough to incite anger amongst the people, but it gets watered down. If you went back 20 years ago, when I first got involved in politics, which my wife's probably sitting there going, oh fuck, why? But when I first got involved in politics, we would get angry about the smallest thing. You know, not the smallest thing, they were important things. And we'd have big rallies in the city and it'd be covered by all the media and there'd be all these angry people there pulling out trees or whatever was going on. And then they started screwing us so often, every week, that we become accustomed to it. And we pick up on one thing and go, oh, that's just dreadful. And we all get angry for a few moments and then what happens? Oh, what's this? 3 more things slip by. You know, they show you something disgusting with this hand while they're shuffling the cars behind you. You know, there's nothing left. If you went home and said, what we should be doing here is having a rally or a meeting, let's talk about the good things that are happening in our state. And then we just sit here silently, have a drink and cry or have a shed a tear, because that's all it would be. There's nothing good. There's nothing to look up to, is there? Is there anything great happening? Put your hands up. Is there anything I don't know about that's good? You know, obviously there might be, but I don't know about it.
Australian Alliance.
Oh, yeah, I like that. So, you know, what this needs to grow is that when we next have a meeting, and instead of handing out half-finished paperwork to you guys, we finalise that paperwork, we chat online, we say that here's our core directives, that is it. We start to expand on that. We've got Adelaide X, we'll talk about that later, which will be a really good media source so we can make sure we've got access to information. And we grow, and then we bring people next time, and we invite the media to come along. And I try and get these same great speakers back, and more. And we spend a few hours, and we video it professionally, and we put it online and say, this is what's happening. And you need to stand up. Okay, this is not good enough. What I'll do is I'll give you all a quick break so you can chat to each other about what's happened. You filthy smokers can have a cigarette, I'll join you. Order another drink from up here, because these guys looked after us well with this place. And we'll come back in a few moments and get some other speakers up, and we'll keep going with what's going on in the world. And then when you go home, you can see that, you know, maybe there's something here that's important to you, but you'll see that there's important things to everybody here, and they're all important to all of us. That's important. Thank you.